My name is Michael Stevens, and the first crack in my marriage didn't come with a scream or a scandal. It came with a kiss that never landed. It was a Tuesday morning in October, one of those brisk days that feels like it's ushering in change, whether you want it or not. I was standing in our kitchen, the one Sabrina insisted we remodel last spring. White marble counters, sleek chrome fixtures, the kind of place that was meant to look like success. I had a hot mug of coffee in my hands, steam rising like the last thread of comfort in a world that had started to tilt. Sabrina flew around the marble island with a kind of urgent energy I used to find endearing. She'd always been quick, always on the move, but now it felt like she was sprinting away from me rather than toward the rest of her day. Her perfume was different, stronger, spicier, something she'd never worn before. I noticed it the instant. She breezed past me, too busy or too determined to pause. Her smile was there, but it was too polished, too rehearsed, like a line delivered on stage. I'd seen her put on a show before, but not for me. "Big day?" I asked, my voice steady, trying to hide the tangle of worry in my chest. She barely looked at me, just nodded and mumbled something about the Morrison account. The Morrison account that had become the catch-all excuse for everything lately. Late nights, early mornings, phone calls that needed to be taken in the other room. It was like an umbrella shielding her from accountability, and I'd let her carry it. I'd even held it open for her. I took a sip of my coffee, letting the heat anchor me to something familiar. "You're not going to sit down? Eat something?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. She shook her head, lips pressed together in a way that once meant she was stressed, but now looked like she was bracing for an impact I hadn't delivered yet. "No time," she said. "Morrison's team moved the meeting up. I'll eat later." She kissed her fingers and pressed them to my cheek, but there was no warmth in it. It was an afterthought, an obligation, a goodbye disguised as a greeting. And then she was gone. The door closing too quietly, the echo of it sinking into the marble and glass like a whisper I couldn't quite catch. I stood there in the kitchen, the scent of her new perfume lingering like an accusation. 3 weeks, that's how long this had been, happening. 3 weeks of late nights at the office, of calls she wouldn't take in front of me, of texts that made her smile at the screen like it held a secret she didn't want me to share. I'd noticed the inconsistencies, the shoes that didn't match the outfit she claimed to be wearing for work, the receipts that didn't line up, the stories that started to fray at the edges like an old sweater she'd worn too often. I'm a financial strategist. Reading patterns is my job, finding the cracks in portfolios, the hidden fees, the market shifts that can make or break a client's future. But somehow I'd missed the one unraveling right in front of me. Maybe I didn't want to see it. Maybe I'd spent so long believing that we were different, that she was different, that I'd let the obvious signs slip past me like water through a sieve. Jared Langston's name floated up from the back of my mind like a bad penny. Jared, my best friend since college. Jared, who was always punctual, always the guy I could count on for an honest answer. But he'd started lying too, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Meetings rescheduled at the last minute. His voice catching on the phone when I asked about his weekend plans. It was like watching a man try to run on ice, every step more desperate than the last. And then there was Sabrina, always so sure of herself, suddenly too busy for the things that used to matter. Like me. I placed the coffee mug on the marble counter and leaned against the island, staring at the empty doorway. The silence settled in my chest like a stone. I thought marriage was about weathering the storms together, about sharing the quiet moments as well as the loud ones. But the silence felt different. It felt like a verdict. I tried to remember the last time she'd kissed me goodbye without that distant look in her eyes. The last time her smile reached the corners of her mouth. The last time her laughter was real. Not a rehearsed script. It was all slipping through my fingers, and the harder I tried to hold on, the faster it fell away. Maybe it was me. Maybe I'd become so consumed by work that I'd stopped paying attention to the details that once made her feel like she was the center of my universe. Or maybe she'd found a new orbit, and I was just the satellite she hadn't bothered to decommission yet. The Morrison account. That's what she said. I'd heard it 100 times now, and every time it felt more like a shield than an explanation. Was no fool. I'd seen the way she'd started to dress for work, like every day was a first date. The way she'd glance at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she'd flinch if I walked into the room too quickly. I walked to the window and watched her car pull out of the driveway. She didn't look back, not once. I tried to convince myself that it was because she was busy, because she was important, because she was in demand. But the truth was, she didn't look back because she didn't have to. She'd already left me behind, emotionally, if not physically. I sighed, the sound rough in my throat, and picked up my phone. I scrolled through my recent calls. Jared's name, the man who'd stood by me at my wedding, who'd toasted us at our anniversary dinners, who'd promised to always have my back. I wanted to believe he was still that friend, but the lies had started to stack up like debts I couldn't pay. 3 weeks. That's how long I'd been living in this new world. A world where my wife's perfume was different, her smile was scripted, and her excuses came too easily. A world where my best friend's voice carried the weight of secrets. A world where I felt like the last one to know. I turned back to the kitchen. The marble island now feeling like a cold monument to everything we built together, or thought we built. I ran my hand over the smooth surface, remembering the laughter we'd shared while choosing the finish, the fights we'd had about the budget, the way we'd celebrated when it was finally done. It all felt like a scene from someone else's life now. The coffee had gone cold in the cup. I dumped it down the sink and rinsed the mug out, my hands moving automatically. I didn't know what came next, but I knew this. The first crack had appeared in my marriage, and it hadn't come with a scream or a scandal. It had come with a kiss. That never landed. And I wasn't sure I'd ever get that warmth back. I stood there in the kitchen alone, the scent of her unfamiliar perfume still in the air. I couldn't decide if it was a warning or a promise. But I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed answers. I needed the truth. And I needed it now. As a financial strategist, I'd built a career on reading patterns, subtle shifts in markets, behavioral blips, and data sets that most people overlooked. I'd made my living spotting the anomaly that spelled opportunity or disaster, but somehow I'd failed to recognize the anomaly unfolding right in front of me. I'd overlooked the deep